Very exciting.
Crazy crowd in the order here.
In the order. Yeah.
Order! Welcome to the
Jake, are you ready?
School District 65 Board of Education budget hearing on June 13th, 2017. Ladies, could you please take a roll for the budget hearing?
I would be happy to. Ryder.
Yes. Here.
Hood.
Here.
Berry.
Here.
Charlotte here. Gottschall.
Present.
Haig.
Happy to be here.
Present.
Here. All right, all present and accounted for. We have a quorum, and tonight's early meeting is for a budget hearing. The purpose of this meeting is to allow the public to comment on the proposed 2016-2017 amended school budget. So we're amending this year's budget. Anybody who'd like to speak is welcome to do so after Jay completes his presentation. And the reason we're doing this, just in general, is there's a number of reasons, but a couple of the highlights have to do with unexpected changes in transportation costs this year, as well as some unexpected legal expenses. There's more to it than that, but in general, that's kind of the overview. And I think I hand off now to Mr. Jay Kahn, who is our business official.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not going to be presenting anything tonight. I'll just be speaking. You have the budget and the state form in your packet. Essentially, as Mark indicated, we had some unexpected cost increases in transportation and legal and some other areas, which required us to amend our budget. If you go over a certain percentage, or if you spend over your budgeted amount in a particular fund, the state requires you to reapprove your budget by the same process that you approved the original budget. So we presented the amended budget on May 9th. It's been on display on our website and at the district office for the required 30 days. And it's being brought, and you'll be approving it at the regular meeting after this. Essentially, we just took all the cost overruns and offset them with the favorability in other areas, and the budget is still balanced, and it's more of a procedural requirement to comply with the state law.
Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments for Mr. Kahn?
I do not.
Nice summary, Mr. Kahn.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience? Anybody? Okay. Are we required to keep this open for 5 more minutes, or can we adjourn?
We can adjourn, but we cannot start the next one until 6:55.
So at 6.
Ask Kevin to juggle.
At 6:50, may I have a motion to adjourn our budget hearing? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so the budget hearing is closed, and we will resume in 5 minutes at 6:55 with a public hearing on an interfund transfer. So stay tuned.
resolution.
Not as an action. Welcome to our second event of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Lakeville School District 65 Board of Education public hearing on interfund transfer for June 13th, 2017. Can we please have a roll for this interfund transfer meeting?
Absolutely. Ryder.
Here.
Hood.
Here.
Berry.
Present.
Charlo, present. Gotcha. Present. Heck.
Present.
Present.
Here. All present and accounted for. Tonight, our second meeting of the evening is for a public hearing, the purpose of which is to allow the public to comment on the interfund transfer for the Educational Foundation Fund to the Operations and Maintenance Fund. The public will be allowed to address the board after Mr. Khan makes his presentation to the board. Correct me if I'm wrong, but basically this allows us to use funds to free up funds for the middle school to pay part of the bill for the middle school renovation.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Khan.
Okay, the board had planned to spend fund balance on the middle school renovation. The first half of the renovation that was done with last fiscal year was paid with bond proceeds, and the second half that was done, that was paid for this fiscal year is coming out of fund balance. In order to move the fund balance from the education fund to the capital projects fund, the school code actually requires you to transfer it first into the operations and maintenance fund, and then you can transfer it from there into the capital projects fund. So the two resolutions we'll be approving at the board meeting, the first is your authorization to transfer money from the ed fund to the O&M fund, and then the second resolution is to transfer money from the O&M fund into the capital projects fund for the purpose of paying for the middle school additions and renovations, as was budgeted this year.
All of this interesting reading is available online at our board packets to the public if people want to drill down on this, but it's procedural, right? This
Right.
is just part
It's
of
all
what the law
procedural.
requires.
The school code restricts funds within certain funds and requires board action to move them.
Okay. Done?
I'm done.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Khan? Anybody in the audience?
We need to find out if they have any comments from the public.
Not hearing any. I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn at adjourn this public hearing on interfund transfer at 6:58 p.m.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, and we will resume again at 7 p.m. for our third meeting of the evening on our regular board meeting. So stay tuned.
You saw it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our third meeting of the evening. Welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting, June 13th, 2017. Leanne, please take the roll.
Okay. In case it's changed in the last 5 minutes, let's double check.
Just in case.
Ryder?
Present.
Hood?
Here.
Barry?
Present.
Charlotte, present. Gotcha.
Present.
Peg?
Present.
Present.
Here. All right, all present and accounted for still. Good. Nobody left. And we're going to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll all please stand and join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anybody would like to make a public comment and address the board, please do not hesitate to step up to the podium and do so now. We'll also have that opportunity again at the end of the evening if anybody would like to do that. Not hearing any, we'll move on to the addition of discussion items. So at this time, if anybody on the board would like to recommend an item to be included on a future agenda or to be discussed this evening, please don't hesitate to bring it up now. Or send an email to myself or Dr. Email.
Sometimes I feel like that too.
That's a new superhero, I think. I just saw one of them. Who's that?
Okay.
It's the last meeting of the year.
Energel.
All right, so not having anything come to the top of the list here, we're going to move on to our reports and begin with Margaret St. Clair, the principal of the middle school.
Actually, we're gonna begin with Jay because we don't have any building reports.
Oh.
Eva Rice is not gonna be here. Wendy White may show up, so, oh, she's here, so she's here. So we've got our alliance person.
So we'll go right to the lines. Wendy would like to be there. But yeah, it's up to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, we had our we gave the noise awards. Was it last week at the award ceremony at the middle school? The Dr. Edward S. Noyes Excellence in Education Award, celebrating citizenship, attitude, service, leadership, and academics. So we had 3 winners this year. We had Morgan Bielski, Julia Birmingham, and Matthew Birmingham. So that was pretty exciting. There was, as always, an amazing group of kids. Just always very impressive. And like even their peers, they nominate, like, you know, really shining good examples of what the award is supposed to represent. So it's all really good. It's very well done. So that was exciting. And last night we met and elected our new executive board. Guess what? Not on it. Yeah, I feel like it's really going to stick this time. It was a joy and a privilege to serve the students and teachers and administration of LB65. It really was. I joke about, you know, getting out of here and being done with it, but it was a really wonderful experience. But for next year, I'll be kind of staying on as a past president, so I'm not really going anywhere, but officially, I'm out. Nobody asked me back this time. So president for next year will be Mark Rickmeyer. Vice president is Brian Ubell. Treasurer Tim O'Rourke, and secretary Jay Cummins. And they'll be meeting in August sometime. If anybody wants to see what we're up to in the meantime, of course there's the website, LB65. No, that's not it at all. And yeah, LB65alliance.org. And our Facebook page, which is the Lake Bluff Alliance for Excellence. You can donate on those 2 sites also. And that is all I have.
Thank you for all your
Thanks,
work.
Wendy.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Have a good summer.
All right, so now we're going to move on to item 6E, and our Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Jay Khan, will update us. Will give us an update.
Okay, in your packets under my report is just the list that was presented at the last board meeting of all the items for approval for this board meeting. I'm not going to go through that. We'll go through that in a minute. The other items I have are the disposition of property. Board policy 480 requires that we notify the board when we dispose of district assets. And so included in your packet is a list of equipment that we either have already gotten rid of or will be disposed of this summer. There was a lot of old technology equipment that was recycled that did not have any salvageable value. 2 of the items were sold for $50 and the others were recycled and hauled away at no cost. We also have our 8th grade Mac computers were passed on to 5th grade and then 4th grade, and so now they're being cycled out of inventory, and so we'll have an auction this summer and sell those. In the last couple of years, we've raised between $15,000 to $25,000 selling those old computers, so I'm expecting some results from that. And then this year we went to centralized printing, and we still have all the old large multifunction copier printers scattered throughout the district, and we're going to be getting rid of those this summer as well and recycling them. And then the other item that I have is when we issued bonds, we issued them on a tax-free basis to investors, and so this will become an annual process or an annual report. Basically, our policy requires the compliance officer, which I serve as, to review all of our issues to make sure that they still meet the requirements for tax-free status through the IRS, specifically that we have all the records required under the policy in regard to the bonds, that we've not received any arbitrage profits on the money, that we keep all the contracts, and that and the IRS has not inquired on any of these bonds. So based on all of the review of that information, I'm reporting to you that our bonds currently still meet tax-free status under the IRS regulations. And I'll be reporting on this annually as we review all our past issues. And that's all I have.
Any questions? And then we move along to 6F, where our Director of Student Services, Technologies, and Assessment, Dr. Kevin Rubenstein, will give us an update on summer school and enrollment.
Yes, so actually at your seats this evening, you have a memo from me, which is the updated enrollment projections as of this afternoon for the 17-18 school year. It's not atypical. It looks like this. You have it. I believe it should be at your seats. It is not atypical for us at this point to be projecting a slight dip in enrollment. Typically at this time during the school year, we are projecting that we'll go down by about 25 students, and we usually recoup that at some point during the summer with move-ins. Our enrollment is probably right on track to where we are projecting it to be. So I would anticipate that we will start out this school year next year at right around 900 or 906, which is right where we were at our 6th day enrollment last year. So that shouldn't be a problem. And then in terms of summer school, this evening during the personnel report, you're hopefully going to be approving the summer school staff. So though we slightly trimmed back the program options in terms of summer school this year, we trimmed back the elective courses, we still actually have about the same number of kids coming to us. So last year we had 132 students coming to us. This year we have 116 who are coming to us. So it's about the same number of kids that are still coming to us, and so that is exciting, and we are saving a little bit of money. The administrators are taking turns being the summer school principal, so we saved $5,500 there, and are working hard in other ways to cut some costs during summer programs. So.
Kevin, I wanted to also go back on the enrollment. We had mentioned to you earlier that we were watching class sizes at a couple of grade levels. We are not going to be recommending the addition of any additional teachers at this point. That doesn't mean that it may not change over the summer, of which we would be in contact with you. The other thing is we will be bringing, and I just noticed this on here, we will bring you the update at the August board meeting, which is at the very end of the month in August, so you know how we started school in the fall. But thank you for putting these numbers together. And he's right, we always are seeing a dip in numbers right about this time period. And then Kevin is good about reminding parents, don't forget to register. And we find out new people have moved in and they haven't registered. And so this is typical for this time period. So.
Okay, so we'll move on to 6G, the President's report. I have no report other than to remind people if anybody's interested in attending an NSSCD board meeting tomorrow night, let me know and I can forward you the information. So far I have nothing there. So. And then the superintendent's report.
I just have a couple things. As the board knows, we rescheduled, or we're in the process of rescheduling our policy meeting. More to come probably in August or September. This is also the time of year that we will be getting notification very soon on the Illinois Association of School Boards, IASA and IASBO conference, the III conference, which is the weekend right before Thanksgiving. I would remind everybody that our middle school is going to be up for many architectural awards this year. So we will be booking our usual 2 board member rooms. But if you think you're going to go, and you definitely think you might go if we were to win something or be up, let us know, because we're going to be booking rooms shortly as soon as we get the email from IASBO and IASA and IASB. So just let us know. I have been in communication with Craig, and we are nominated in several categories for the middle school. And usually that award is Saturday morning, if I remember correctly. So it might be to everybody's advantage to come down, go to the Hodges celebration, and then get the award on Saturday morning. So just something to start thinking about ahead of time, because we're all in the mood to think about Thanksgiving when it's 95 degrees outside. We have a big decision to make tonight, and that is in regards to the July board meeting, which every year I've been here we've done differently. It is scheduled for July 18th. Now, we've had a very successful 7 a.m. meeting in July, because remember, it's just approving bills and any personnel. And one year we had a 6 o'clock p.m. meeting outside of this building for, I think it lasted 6 minutes. So we've done it both ways. So I need to know if we're going to do 7 a.m. or 6 p.m. And I wouldn't schedule any more than 10 minutes unless something comes up.
Whatever works for you guys.
Either one is fine with
I vote AM.
AM.
All right, is everyone okay with a.m.?
7 a.m.?
me.
7 a.m.
Here, so I will be in Denmark that day.
What day is it again?
Tuesday the
It's
18th.
Tuesday the 18th, and it sounds like Leanne would like to call in from Denmark. So we've got that, we've got to post that and get that out. So more to come. And that concludes my report.
All right. So now we go on to discussion items and presentations, and we will start back up with Mr. Khan with our 2017-2018 tentative budget report, which will include some simple projections. This will be brought back again for discussion at the August regular board meeting. No, because August is just for 10 minutes.
You are correct. That's the 17th. 18th.
And the September committee of the whole, and for final.
Actually, no. He's right. This is the 17th.
Oh, I'm thinking
18th.
July.
Yeah. We're gonna be bringing it
July
up in
and
August
September.
and September. Yeah,
So
correct,
August and September, and for final vote at the September regular board meeting.
correct.
Okay, last meeting I presented the budget in more detail. So and there were a few comments about how some of the parameters in that budget would impact the district's finances over the long term. So I'm coming back this board meeting with some projections. You can see the 2016-17 is our current amended budget. The 2017-18 is what was presented last time. That's the tentative budget for next year. Nothing has changed in that budget as of yet. Some of the assumptions for the future are 2% CPI increases annually and $3 million of new property per year. Flat state revenue, so this year we're getting only 2 payments of mandated categoricals. That's forecasted to continue. And that could change completely, but I'm just assuming no additional state revenue. In terms of expenses, I'm using our current CBA through 2018-19 and then extending our current salary schedule out beyond that at no increase in base. So we have a 3% step built into our salary schedule. So as teachers move down that step, they would be getting a 3% increase, and if they move across the lanes, they would be getting their lane increases for education. Then admin and support staff annual salary increases in here in this 5-year projection are also at 3% to be consistent. I'm also extending the current insurance splits and maximum that are in the current contract. So I think it's the final year of the contract, it's 6% employee contribution and a $600 maximum. And I'm also assuming 5% premium inflation. And I have $300,000 of capital spending annually. And so as you can see, the curve is sort of how you would expect, but it's relatively flat. We're increasing our revenue at roughly 2% and increasing our expenses at roughly 3%. All other costs increased by CPI, so you would expect to see some downward progression of your fund balance.
So Jay, and I didn't talk to you about this, so I apologize because I don't want to surprise you on questions. But when I look at that last line from 6.0 to 4.6, that is really what the board worked for in refinancing, just to keep everything very level, correct? When we did the bond work?
This is actually just operating funds, so I've pulled that service out of this.
Okay.
Because, and actually in the projections, they levy additional money in debt service to protect against non-payment. And so the difference between what is usually levied and or extended and what we collect builds up a little bit of fund balance in the debt service fund, and I didn't want to obscure the operating funds with that. So.
All right.
This does not, however, include any assumptions for potential changes in property tax freezes that the state may impose on us, correct?
Correct. So this is base case. This is kind of business as usual. It doesn't account for any, if we had a large influx of higher cost special education students. So this is kind of steady state with that. It doesn't, it anticipates, no, or 2% CPI, and then also that it doesn't anticipate any freezes or anything. I did do some sensitivity on those on the next slide. And so you can see the difference here. It's a little bit hard to read, but this is the black line from before, which is kind of the base case. This green line represents if we only had 1% CPI growth, but we continue to grow our expenses at 2% and our salaries at 3%. Then the 2.5, this blue line here is if with a 2-year property tax freeze. And then the red line is if we had a permanent freeze, or at least a 5-year freeze for this projection. So you can see that we're very reliant on property tax revenue, and any deviation from those assumptions would significantly impact the long-term finances of the district. And again, this is assuming that we continue on, we set the course and we don't touch it, and we go off for 5 years, which as you know, we would be adjusting annually to try to balance our budget and make adjustments along the way.
It looks like from the black line that the likely case scenario, I hesitate to call it best case scenario, but something like that, we cross over and become no longer compliant with our policy in 21-22, correct? That seems problematical.
And I think you will find any long-term projection will have this shape, and ours is actually relatively flat. You know, on an annual basis, you have things that change. You know, I guess you'll have surprises, both positive and negative. This is supposed to kind of be
Average goes out.
average, but just by virtue of the fact that every year you're making adjustments to balance your budget, you tend to be flatter than the projection would show.
So what year did you, it's hard for me to see that from this.
2023.
What year did you introduce the property tax freeze?
So the property tax freeze, we're already set, it would be this year, 2019-20.
Okay, and
2017-18 is this upcoming year. We've already extended the taxes for those. Then the CPI has already been set at 2%. I suppose they could introduce the property tax freeze and say, hey, that 2% CPI, you're not going to get it next year. But I'm making the assumption that it's so late in the game that they don't have time to do that at this point. So that the freeze, in this case, starts in 2019-20. And the impact of a freeze, of any property tax freeze, is about $300,000 a year. So assuming a 2% CPI. And what I mean by that is that in the first year of a freeze, you would lose $300,000 of potential property tax revenue. In a 2-year freeze, the second year, you would lose $600,000. And then if it continued and you had a 3-year freeze, in the third year, you would lose $900,000, because each year is based upon the growth from the year prior. So you lose the first 3, and then in the second year, you use that.
so that accounts for the difference between sort of best case and worst case in total. That's a cumulative effect.
That's the cumulative effect. So the
Four-
4.6 to 1.7 is
All
1, 2, 3,
that's
4 years of.
$300,000 a year accumulated.
Right, 300 the first year, then 600 the second. So after 2 years, it's 9. After 3 years, it's 1.2 million. After 4 years, it's.
Has there been any indication of, is it, what's the indication for the length of a property tax freeze? Has that been discussed at all?
There have been, I think, 40 different bills floated, and it's all over the board. I would have to imagine that if it was going to be longer than 2 years, that they would need to make some adjustment to school funding in general, because the majority of the districts could not survive with a permanent freeze without some other change to school funding.
Do they, based on what you've read and seen on proposals that are out there, does the freeze indicate that they're freezing the rate, or are we being held to the prior year's levy, or?
Well, the way the freeze works is that they would occur in most, again, it's different in different legislation, but most of the legislation sets the PTEL CPI to 0. So it says, your CPI was 2%, but you can only take 0 for your levy. But what that means is that any taxes from your property you get. So if your tax rate is $2 per $1,000 of value, and you get an additional $3 million of revenue of new property, you apply that rate to the new property. So you're still getting an additional $60,000 of revenue just from new property. So it's not freezing it. The other sort of, not unintended consequence, but I think the other thing that happens is that freezes taxes in general, overall, but it doesn't freeze an individual property owner's taxes. So if somebody's assessment goes up a lot more than everyone else's assessment, they're going to still be charged with carry a higher burden of the property tax. So their taxes may go up. If your assessment goes up less than everyone else's, then your property taxes may go down. But it doesn't freeze an individual homeowner's taxes. So they may pass a property tax freeze, and many homeowners will still see their property taxes go up, and there'll be a lot of
That'll
confusion.
be a surprise to a lot of people.
And not every district is a PTEL district, correct?
Every district in the collar counties and most.
Downstate though,
How
there
are
are
they going to
many.
implement that in other parts of the state, if that's how, it's weird.
Right, I mean, I'm sure there's something in the bill that either makes them a P-TEL county or sets the rate or something to that.
I think this is a good heads up. It's a little too early to count on anything right at this point.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of uncertainty, but this just sort of shows you the path that we're on. And these are some generous assumptions, so trying to make sure we have enough capital spending and other things and to make it realistic, but then anything could change. So
I would suggest that when we do our strategic planning, we make sure that the committees and the people involved in that are made aware of what the potential future holds. Because if we have people, our community expects a lot of us in terms of education and delivery of services. They need to be aware that this is not quite so simple as just spend more money and make our schools better, because we're facing this. So
I think we're gonna have to present finances first, actually, so.
I think this frames conversations like transportation too.
And student fees and technology fees.
and it may suggest that while you're free to levy money, you should take advantage of that and protect yourself for the future in case you're limited.
We haven't left any P-TEL formula on the table for a couple of years now, though, right?
No, the last couple of years, the CPI has been 0.7 and 0.8,
Yeah.
so we've levied the 0.7 and 0.8.
Right.
Next year's levy will be at a 2.1% CPI.
Oh,
I would recommend.
yeah. Well, that curve, we have to. I mean, there was one
I
thing
don't think we have much
not
of
to
a
levy
choice.
it when we were up in the 60 or 70 or 80%.
Right.
I don't think we have much of a choice.
No.
Now we pretty much spend
No.
everything we take in. We have a
No.
balanced budget every year. We're not having $1 million surpluses annually.
Right,
so it's-
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about all the conversations that this is the frame for, there's no way that we'll be able to do compensation for anybody, without this being a big factor.
It's gotta be.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jay.
Any other questions for Jay? Thanks, Jay. All right, so now we're going to move on to 7B and a strategic planning update from Dr. Sophie.
My update is very short. We actually set 3 days in September and October for strategic planning. A lot of you have given me names of people that you would like to participate. They've all received emails, they're confirming that. We collected a lot of data from staff and parents this past year that is being all correlated and put together for sharing. You guys will get it first. I'm working with the village and the park district on coming up with a community-wide survey to hit our community members. So when we come back in August, which isn't that far away, I need to say, I'll be sharing the feedback. We have the strategic planning dates, which I believe I sent all of you, but Shelley will send you dates so that you know what those are. And I would continue to tell all of you and say it on live TV here, that if you know of anybody that would like to participate in the strategic planning process, we'd love to have them. We have a good strategic plan, so we're not starting from scratch, but we are going to need to look at finances obviously in the beginning, and really look at the 4 goals that we've got and see if we want to polish those up or add any others or take them away, etc. So we're on a good roll, and we will go full force when we return in the beginning of the school year.
Okay. And then finally, for discussions, item 7C, Dr. Lindsay will be presenting details on our professional development survey.
So I wanted to quickly review the results of the professional development survey that we have done every year for the past several years, 4 years. Give you some background on professional development in the district and the survey results, and talk about some future plans. So strong professional development hopefully leads to improved teacher knowledge and skills. That is the hope. And that in turn leads to better classroom teaching, and then that would lead to improved student achievement if we have a strong curriculum, good standards, lots of accountability, and strong assessment measures. And so that's what I was trying to portray there, I think, in this graphic here. So the professional development survey, we first started administering it in the fall of 2013, and we've given it every year since then. Questions have been developed and reviewed by the Professional Development Committee, which is made up of teachers and administrators. It's administered online using SurveyMonkey, and we had 96 staff members respond out of approximately 110 possible people who could respond. So a pretty good response rate. Just a little bit of background on some professional development opportunities from this school year. We provide professional development to our staff on early release days. One of the faculty meeting times each month is taken with professional development work. Each of the Teacher Institute days is used for professional development. We do some work during the school day using a studio model where teachers will go and visit other classrooms and participate in some curricular workshops. There are some external professional development providers through North Suburban Special Education District and professional organizations and conferences. I just got our report, and Mark will be getting this, or whoever goes to the board meeting tomorrow night from NSSED will be getting this board report. But our board report from NSSED, we've actually increased our participation in NSSED professional development. We had a grand total of 8 people participating the year before I got here to last year. This year we had, I think, 136 days of professional development provided by NSSED. So really a good participation piece there for something that we are already paying for through our membership fees for NSSED.
They've made their PD a lot more relevant too.
Yes,
They really have. We provide professional development after school at least once a month through a program called Lake Bluff University, and so that's often topical, provided by teachers, and so that has been one of our smaller programs, but something that we're looking to make a little bit more relevant and then in the future. And then our summer professional development is often a big focus, and it's a big focus for us right now as we prepare for the summer. So just some of the professional development experiences. So 81% of the respondents indicated that the professional development has met their needs, and that is an increase of 11 percentage points over the last 2 years. So that's really something that is exciting, and as we have dug down deeper into the survey data about why that is, it is exciting to see that teachers are able to attend some of the different conferences that they wanted to, or NSSED is able to meet their needs, or we're providing them right here on site. So 92% of the respondents indicated that professional development has helped them to learn new things. And then 90% of the respondents indicated that professional development helped to improve student learning. And so that's something that we are always looking to see over time, and that's an increase of 3%. So in terms of how prepared people feel to meet the needs of different students of different backgrounds. So students who struggle academically, the vast majority of our staff feel like they are well prepared to meet the needs of students with that background, all the way down to students with English language learning backgrounds. 46% of our staff feel like they are prepared or highly prepared to meet the needs of students who have an English language learning background. In talking with some of my colleagues up and down the North Shore, this is not atypical. There is kind of a feeling of what do we do to meet the needs of students with English language learning needs, and what we are trying to remind our teachers of is that there are a lot of good strategies that they have learned over the years for working with students with language needs or with learning disabilities or with other needs that are going to help them to meet the needs of students with English language learning backgrounds. So kind of a nice piece there, so about how prepared they feel to meet the needs of those students there. And some potential staff development. Yes?
Can I ask a question on the prior slide?
Please.
I don't know if, I didn't forward this question to you because it just occurred to me, but I'm wondering, can you speak to if there's any trending going on that, the bottom half of that chart? Is it moving to the right, which would be good? Is it stagnant, moving back?
It is, the things that we have been working really hard on, so students with executive functioning, certainly trending to the right. Students who are struggling to manage their emotions, we've been really working hard over the past couple of years with our Safe and Civil Schools cohort and those sorts of things to actually put those pieces into place here. And so those are all trending to the right. There's really nothing that I can recall from the survey that is either stagnant or falling off here. So just some potential staff development topics for the future, behavior intervention strategies. Everybody that is a top, it's a top need as more students are coming to us, and especially at the time that we administer the survey, there are students who are acting out in their classrooms in a variety of different ways. And so teachers are looking for ways to intervene earlier and depending on what that looks like. And so we are working with NSSED to engage in possibly some coaching next year early on. Some strategies to tailor or differentiate instruction using technology in the classroom, teaching students with disabilities, all the way on down the line. Student engagement goes right along with that, using technology in the classroom. We've actually partnered, thanks to Dr. Sophie, with Libertyville District 70. We have a nationally known keynote speaker coming in the fall on September 22nd, George Kuros, who is an expert on using technology and student engagement. And so he's actually going to be working with all of our teachers and administrators in both districts on that day. So really exciting to have him here because he's kind of the guru. Social emotional learning is always one of those pieces that comes up next year. Kelly and I are going to be working really hard to revisit our multi-tiered systems of support. Staff mindfulness and wellness always comes up, and formative assessment is something that we are always trying to take a look at, and that goes right along with the standards-based reporting because the formative assessment pieces fit right along with the creating assessments. I think that if we looked 3 years down the road, what we would hope to see is that we would have assessments created in a lot of different grade levels for each of the different standards that go along the way. And so we've talked about that before, and so creating assessments is a top area there, norming a 4 or mastery, and then reporting on students with disabilities. And that is really something that has come up. Kelly and I have spent a great deal of time with both of the special education teams at both of the schools, but primarily at the middle school, talking with them about just what that looks like, and it's our time now to take that to the next level and working with the staff. So just some key takeaways for us. So as our student population in the district has shifted, we are really working hard to make sure that we align the professional development for our staff. So in terms of students with ELL needs, students with disabilities, and students living in poverty. It was interesting, one of the professional development speakers that we had earlier on this year, and I'm looking at Nate because he's one of Nate's graduate school professors, put up a series of numbers, and the numbers gradually increased over the last several years. So it didn't look like years. And it was to indicate the number of students living in poverty in the district, the number of students with English language learning needs in the district, the number of students who are on free and reduced lunch in the district. It was like a gradual increase in the numbers, and that just seeing that objectively was kind of surprising for everybody. Susan, you look
So
like
my question, I think you may have answered it, was the data that you're referring to having seen is data specific to our district.
Yes.
But, okay.
Absolutely. Yep. And we really, it is surprising when you take a big step backwards and look at the data over time at the increase in the number of students with English language learning needs from where we were at 6 or 7 years ago to where we are at now, especially. So, and when you think about the teachers that we have hired over the last several years who are coming out of programs that may not have had a class on working with students with ELL needs, we need to provide those. We need to provide that professional development for them. So our standards-based reporting initiative provides a comprehensive lens for working with teachers in the professional development arena. So that is really going to drive a great deal of our work. The professional development program in the district has, I will say, just not to toot our own horn, but I will, we've really improved it over the last several years. It's something I think that we are doing really well on. We still have more work to do, but the data supports the idea that we're doing far better now than we have been in the past, and professional development is meeting the needs of most people in this school district. So just some future plans. We have been meeting, all of us have, with the professional development committee to work on the plan for 17-18. We've actually, to focus on the second point, the overall coherence of the professional development program, we've actually divided it into 4 different big broad areas, and are trying to come at it from a new angle next year. So I'm very excited about the work, and a much more engaged professional development committee than we have had in the past. And actually we got them to a place where we wanted them to be in the last week, where they said, wow, this is really, really hard to do and to get everything into 1 year. And we said, yes, it is. That's exactly what we've been struggling with. So, yes. Any questions that I can answer?
Not a question, but a comment. I know that NSSED is looking to expand their offerings in that world. And so I would encourage your committee to tap into that if you think of something that they may have the resources to provide learning on, to ask them to develop a curriculum in certain areas. Because some of what NSSED does that is developed for students with disabilities works really well for regular students as well. So don't hesitate to ask them, because I think they're looking to have broader offerings.
Right, I would agree with you. So that actually brings to mind 2 points. So we've had different conversations with NSSED about the curricular piece, specifically related to, as we are rolling out Lucy Hawkins, and what that looks like for our students with disabilities, and what that should look like in our self-contained special education classrooms. And what the professional development might look like in that arena, and how we can create an economy of scale there. And so those conversations are already started. But the other piece of that is, as we have talked with and about technology integration, we've been working with SinglePath, and so they are actually going to work with us this summer as we're doing some of our Lucy Hawkins training with some of our staff to actually be in our, for example, 3rd grade reading professional development, to just see what goes on, because a lot of times it is not so much that our teachers don't have the ideas for what they want to do with technology. It is that they don't have the time to develop it, or they don't know where to go to get it. And that's exactly what we can be utilizing Single Path for, because they have those economies of scale already created, and they have full-time professional development people who are working on those sorts of things. So they are willing to sit and work with us through our Lucy Calkins curriculum and say, hey, I have this great idea for doing writer's workshop. Let's try this using technology to sort of enhance the lesson that you're already doing. Other questions?
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to action items. Item 8A has to do with the approval of the 2016-2017 amended budget. So this is what Jay has gone over with us several times. I don't know if Jay wanted to say anything for the record here, or did anybody have any questions for Jay on the amended budget? And we're all clear why we're amending it, because of some unforeseen expenses that have come up, and it's still a balanced budget. Not seeing the need, so may I have a motion to approve the 2016-2017 amended budget as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gutschall,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes. Motion is approved. Similarly, this item 8B is for a motion to approve interfund transfers, which, as Jay has highlighted for us a couple times, allows us to pay our bills at the middle school with using some fund balance money that we're moving from account to account, right? Any questions for Mr. Khan on that? So, we have a motion to approve the interfund transfers presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gutschall,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8C is approval of the prevailing wage. We do this every year. As per Illinois School Code, the Prevailing Wage Act, this resolution must be approved every June. Jay has included a memo in your board packet summarizing what we're doing here. Any questions for Mr. Khan, or do we need Mr. Khan to summarize any of that? No? May I have a motion to approve the prevailing wage as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gutschall,
No.
Richard Haig,
No.
Philip Hood,
No.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, no.
Interesting.
That's
The
interesting.
motion is not approved. What do we do?
It's not approved.
There you go.
I don't think there's any consequences for that, is there?
Jay's like, this has never happened before.
Actually, more and more boards are doing that for prevailing wage. I'll have to check to see if there's consequences, because we may have to do it for recognition of our school district. We may have to have it on file.
Well, we still legally have to pay prevailing wage, and
Right.
approving the resolution makes a difference.
Right.
It is
Why do we do the
super,
resolution?
super silly for them to require by law that we vote on, like, why then have us vote? It's such a waste of time.
A lot, that's happening a lot with a lot of boards with this one, so.
All right, item 8D, approval of the GCA janitorial services contract amendment. Let's see. Let's see. Jay has provided a memo and overview of the 2014-2015 contract for janitorial services with GCA, which was a one-year contract with the option to extend for up to 4 additional one-year terms at the board's discretion. Administration is recommending the board approve the third one-year extension. Any further questions for Mr. Khan? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the GCA janitorial services contract amendment as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Philip Hood,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gutschall, yes.
You can do the next one, voice vote.
Yep, motion is approved. Okay, 8E, the approval of transportation safety hazardous routes. The board is required by law to annually review hazardous conditions relative to transportation safety. The annual resolution remains on file in the district for audit purposes. The administration is recommending no change from last year's resolution. Any questions or comments?
I do have some questions, if I can get the map here. So am I reading the map correctly, that we, in yellow is considered, anything that's in yellow on page 115
Yes.
is considered hazardous?
That's correct. The Department of Transportation has a rating scale based on a number of factors, including speed of traffic, number of cars per minute, whether or not there are sidewalks. These conditions were graded and approved by the Department of Transportation.
How long ago?
Actually, pretty long ago. The numbers, the first two digits of that number for the area is the year. So I think one is 83.
65 or 83?
I'm sorry, maybe it's the middle digits. The first is 65 is our district. So 83 and 92 or something like that, 88. We're going to be reviewing all of those again this year.
It ties in with our discussions on transportation charges, so we'll be reviewing all of those during the coming year.
It really does not necessarily impact the district in the sense that what it's primarily used for is transportation reimbursement. The state reimburses for transportation provided in hazardous areas. We don't get much of a reimbursement anyway, but it still is a good practice to determine whether you are going to provide transportation.
Do we get any reimbursement for transportation for hazardous routes?
No, our
My understanding was
entire,
no, and not for several years.
You
No.
still apply
No.
as an individual for reimbursement.
You know, I've applied.
And yeah, we get to.
Crickets.
Gave up.
we get $16 per student per year for regular transportation,
We do.
$16.
correct,
But not related to the
but
hazardous
not
route
related to
thing.
the hazardous routes.
Yeah. The last voting and debating is like
It's kind of pointless again.
the prevailing wage thing.
Yeah. Any other
Curious.
questions
Doesn't make any
about
sense, but-
the hazardous routes? So, the board is required by law to annually review hazardous conditions relative to transportation. May I have a motion to approve the transportation safety hazardous routes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Yes.
The motion passes. 8,
Nothing's
Yes.
salty.
approval of annual banking depository. Board policy 430, revenue and investments, requires that the board review and approve a list of authorized depositories at least annually. And the board shall also be kept informed of any collateral agreements. Mr. Khan would like to elaborate on that at all, or is there any need to?
We've had the same banks for the last several years. We've used Lake Forest Bank and Trust, which is a Wing Trust bank. I have their reports of that they submit to the FDIC and available for viewing if anyone wants to per board policy, and then also attached to the collateral agreement. They hold 125% of daily deposits in government securities as collateral for our deposits over the $225,000 or $250,000 FDIC limit.
Any questions or comments?
No.
I have a motion to approve the annual banking depository as presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ryder?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotcho? Yes. Heck?
Yes.
Hood?
Yes.
Motion passes. 8G, the approval of the health savings account contribution. Last year, the board approved a matching contribution to employee health savings accounts to be reviewed annually. Administration is recommending extending the contribution of the same amounts to the next fiscal year. Any questions or comments regarding that?
We had one person take us up on it last
We
year,
had one person sign up for it last year.
so we'd like to at least double that for next year.
It seems like such a missed opportunity
Yeah,
for
I mean-
people. Is there anything that can be done to encourage?
I mean, if it's the same result after this year, I mean, what would you consider doing?
It's a lot of education, don't you think, Jay?
Much
And
education and having people on staff who are champions of it. I think we are, as I stated in the memo, we've done some analysis and we're overinsured, and then, a very large, significant percentage of our population is not even meeting deductible, so we got off and we're not this.
Right.
It's just the risk profiles people are aware of.
I think people also need to be made aware that it's quite generous that there's an employer contribution. I mean, I'm in one of these without one, so it's a really good deal. It's like free money.
It is.
Well,
I
it
mean,
is,
it's
but
tied
then-
with it.
Yeah, it carries over.
You can use it forever and ever, so if you're not using the current health insurance, then you understand that this is something portable that stays with you. Yeah.
We did have an educational presentation again this year, and we had some more interest or at least comments and questions from the audience. We're also, in particular, middle school focused on the deferred compensation plans and investing for future service. They could see how it's going hand in hand with that. And I don't know what the results of open enrollment are yet, but there was at least seemed like more people got it or considering it.
Good.
Right.
And the cost to the district, it's the same, whether we fund the HSA or we pay for
It's
the full
designed to
PPO.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the health savings account contribution as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8H, the approval of insurance renewals. This is an annual approval for property casualty and workers' compensation renewals as discussed in Mr. Khan's memo from last month. Any questions or comments on that? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the insurance renewals as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Okay, item 8I, approval and acceptance of fiscal year 17 school treasurer's surety bond. This is completed annually after Mr. Khan is appointed the treasurer. The necessary documents from the insurance company are attached in your board packet. This must be submitted to the Lake County Regional Office of Education by June 30th, 2017, as detailed in Mr. Khan's memo from last month. Any further questions or comments on that? May I have a motion to approve May I have a motion to approve and accept fiscal year 17 school treasurer's surety bond?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8J, approval of property tax appeal resolution for Klein Thorpe Jenkins Ltd. As discussed at Jim's May 23rd Board of Ed, at Mr. Khan's presentation at the May 23rd Board of Ed meeting, the attorney who represents the district in property tax objections has switched firms. Approval of the resolution will authorize his new firm, Klein Thorpe Jenkins, to represent the district in such matters. Any questions or comments?
Can you just explain to me what this resolution does? What the law firm does, I guess?
The law firm represents the district in cases, so if somebody files a property tax appeal, they go before the property tax appeal board, and the county assessor sometimes defends their assessment, but in many cases it's left up to the district to provide, to either negotiate with the person who's appealing or to provide evidence that the appeal is correct. And so somebody will be asking for, say, a reduction in assessed value of $500,000, and they'll go to the person and either negotiate a lesser amount or provide evidence that the assessor's assessment is correct, and then the board will rule on the assessed value. So it ends up saving us quite a bit of money in terms of.
How often has that occurred in the past?
It happens every year.
Does it?
It's a fiduciary responsibility for a
So
board to do
do
that.
each of the segments, and we're only one part of the property tax bill, do the others have representation as well?
Like the town, the
Well,
village.
Potentially. I mean, the assessor does some of it. There's a certain threshold. Anything over $100,000 of assessed value change is sent to all the different taxing bodies, and then it's up to us whether or not we want to provide a defense. And so there are many cases where he'll look at it and say, this isn't worth your time. And in some cases, he will represent us in court. And it doesn't cost us very much. I think we spend a couple $1,000s a year on fees for him, but it's saved us a significant amount of money in terms of property taxes.
I mean, I basically wanted to understand that there was some materiality threshold and that we weren't delegating too much discretion to the law firm to decide how much legal service
No,
we needed.
it's a discussion that we have. He always,
Yeah.
I will call him or he will call me and say, and I recommend doing this. Do you want me to address this? Or in some cases, for example, our transportation fund balance was over 3 times our annual expenditures, and so that is a legitimate appeal. And so he would ask me, they presented this evidence, can you go back and is it correct, factually correct? And so I'll verify that, and if it is, then he says, okay, then we're not going to address this one. So there's work that goes on. He just doesn't.
There's oversight.
There's oversight. He's not appealing everything just to earn fees.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the property tax appeal resolution as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gutschall.
Yes.
Richard Hague.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlock, yes.
Motion is approved. Item 8K, the approval of computer purchase and lease. As Mr. Khan discussed at the May 23rd Board of Ed meeting, the district is on an annual technology replacement cycle. This will be the 3rd year we lease MacBook Airs for Lake Bluff Middle School, 6th grade. We wish to purchase Chromebooks to expand into 4th grade from 2nd and 3rd. And we need to replace 5-year-old iPads in grades K through 1. Any other questions for the administration on this? Or comments? We have a motion to approve the computer purchase and lease as presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlock, yes. Julie Gutschall.
Yes.
Richard Hague.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
No.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Approval of administrator contracts. In this case, we're talking about administrative contracts for Mr. Nate Blackmer at the middle school, Kelly Bay in the administrative office, and Margaret St. Clair at the elementary school. We have talked in closed session about this, and in summary, Mr. Blackmer's contract is a 3% increase. Ms. St. Clair's contract is a 3% increase, and Ms. Kelly Bay's contract is a little more significant than that because we're reorganizing her position. Mr. Blackmer will continue to be the middle school principal, but we'll have an assistant in Kelly Bay. And Kelly Bay will continue to be the director of her curriculum.
She will be the new director of
Director of curriculum, but assisted by Mr. Blackmer to get him some experience in that area. Any other things I should be pointing out about those?
No.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll comment. We have voted on 3% increases for others, and as I articulated last time, I, particularly looking at these numbers, have a problem with the automatic 3% increase. I believe strongly that we are served by great talent who deserve to be fairly compensated, but I am going to draw that sort of line in the sand or stake in the ground or whatever of just starting to try to provide some more thought and deliberation behind an automatic 3% increase. So for that reason, I am going to vote.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the administrator contracts for Mr. Nate Blackburn, Ms. Kelly Bay, and Ms. Margaret St. Clair as discussed in closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Richard Hague.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlock, yes. Julie.
Gotcha. No, thank you.
I already have, I wrote it down.
Okay, no, sorry.
The motion is approved. Personnel report, item 8M. In this case, we have a number of things I noticed. Do you think I need to read all the personnel for the center school district as well?
No. I think you need to read the resignations and just talk about it's the usual summer school list.
Okay, so in this case, we have A number of summer school recommendations for hire, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it looks like 12 or 13 employees, all ranging between 20 and 64 hours over the summer at $41 an hour. As well as we have 3 resignations. Assembly McBain from as a teaching assistant at the middle school, effective August 1. Going to pursue something else. Brad Dijon, a wellness teacher at the elementary school, effective June 16th, is relocating. And then Michael Kaplan, a teaching assistant at the elementary school, effective June 12th, will not return following probation period. We also have some non-licensed temporary recommendations to hire.
That's summer school also.
Oh, that's summer school.
Yep, that's all summer school.
Okay, so summer school is actually 4 additional on top of the 12 or 13.
Those are teaching it, non-licensed.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Phil Hood,
Yes.
Susan
Was
Ryder,
surprised I was the first one.
Yes.
I'm rotating it. Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Leanne Sherrill, yes. Julie Gotshall,
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And our final action item for the evening is the consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes open session meeting minutes for the May 16th, 2017 Policy Committee meeting, the May 23rd, 2017 regular Board of Education meeting. It includes closed session meeting minutes for the May 23rd, 2017 regular Board of Education meeting. It includes our P card report, our bills report, our impress report, and our treasurer's report. Is there anything anybody would like to hold from the consent agenda so we can discuss that individually?
No.
I'd like to make a comment about the consent agenda. The bills report is divided into 2 different separate reports. I meant to cover this in my report. One report is all the bills for June, and the second report is the bills for July, mostly renewals for next year that require payment before the July meeting, so we're approving them at this board meeting. But they'll be on next year's budget,
I see.
as well as June 30th bond payments.
All good? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda for June 13th, 2017 as discussed.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Barry,
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Sherrill, yes. Julie Gotshall,
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Phil Hood,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Agenda item number 9, FOIA requests.
We do not have any.
Item 10, public comments. If anybody would like to address the board, please feel free to do so. If you're not here and you have a question, don't hesitate to send an email to myself or Dr. Sophie. Item 11 is a motion to adjourn at 8:10, but if anybody needs to make a comment, please
I wanna
don't
make a
hesitate to
comment.
do so.
I just wanted to thank all of you and all of our administrators and Shelley in the audience for a great year. It's been a different year because we started so late and we're ending so late, and we're going to have a very short summer, but it's been a very good year. We have a beautiful new building. Our kids have done great in schools, and you guys have all done wonderful work in everything we've done. So I just wanted to thank everyone for a good school year.
Thank
Because
you.
it's our
Thank
last
you.
board meeting of the school year.
Have a great summer to all our teachers, and thanks for your hard work. So, motion to adjourn at 8:10, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.